said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
We can all get along, but there's no stopping. Ay, everybody's wrong, that's the real problem. Ay, they don't want to hear it, but they still talking. Ay, soon enough, we running out of options. Ay, this ain't gonna end till it's in the coffin. Ay, we ain't gonna be friends till we try to squash it. Ay, I don't know how we can make amends or we drop it. Snowflakes melt when it's hot, kid.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no, the forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you folks doing tonight? Welcome again to HeartMind Expressions, the Fab Four. With me, AlexSpielman, and my wonderful co-host, Soma McClure. Amária
Hey,
and
everyone.
Alex will not be available. So Amária and Alex are not going to be available this evening. So you just got us two lovelies for the next hour or so. And hope you enjoy. Sit back, relax, and hope you have an enjoyable experience for the rest for the time. Good evening, Sue. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. I'm absolutely. It's been a very long week, but then again, once again, long everything. We're putting up with the Earth constantly changing. It's not just rotating; it's changing.
Changing, evolving, and frequencies are constantly just all over the place lately.
Yeah, especially the human resonance. Those of you who don't know what that is, I mean, that's the energies that goes on our planet. It's the measurement of it. It's been off the chart a lot more than usual. So if you guys are feeling tired or sometimes more energetic than usual, a lot of changes. Some of you guys might see a lot of purging of things that no longer serves you, whether it's a job, whether it's just little stuff in life, whether it's even relationships. There's just a lot of purging going on. Sometimes the inner body purging as well. So before we get started, though, I would like to put in a few plugs. So I would like to thank I would like to thank Katie Kamara, and I would like to give a shout out for iEvolveTV, and I would like to also for Savvy Clothesline, a Savvy Clothing Line, if you guys just want to have something that fits you, be able to move around, be comfortable in, for all shapes and sizes, all kinds of just activities that you want to do, and it's just comfortable. So for Savvy Clothing Line, we'll give absolute 2 thumbs up for that. I also want to give thanks to AV Radio and COC4 Radio as well. Thank you guys for everything, and wouldn't be here without all these supports. So should we get into what's going on today? There are some stuff floating around on Twitter, and I know we had stuff going on with the stocks. We have this we always have this thing when they say if you go woke, you're gonna go broke. So looks like some companies are experiencing that.
Well, in the words of one gentleman, if he goes woke, he goes to shit. Unquote.
Yeah.
And you know who that is. But yeah, we got several companies that are just in the process of tanking or are having some major changes happening to them. I think the two best known ones are going to be the Walt Disney Corporation and the and Twitter itself. Twitter is a longer story, so we're going to hold that one for second. First, it's going to be Walt Disney because that's just pretty straightforward. We have Disney going woke, talking about grooming. And actually, now if you go onto Urban Dictionary, there's a entry, and a Disney is a person who is a groomer. They actually now have that in Urban Dictionary, and when it's in Urban Dictionary, it's in the zeitgeist. So we'll see what that means later on. I mean, we're seeing a lot of different things going after the children, and there is a fine line when it comes to that. You can mess with people, but you don't mess with the kids, and that's when people start getting angry and they start lashing out. And we're seeing that not just with Disney, but we're also seeing that in places like New Jersey over here. We have parents that are very angry with the new curriculum that is going to be put in place come November. I'm sorry, come September, and they have no way of backing down from this. Actually, we actually have a new development when it came to that one, which is the very sexualized LGBT included curriculum. And I'm not saying that against people who are part of the LGBT community. I'm talking about how it is being forced upon children. That's a difference. It's being supported by Planned Parenthood. And if you are familiar with the back history of Planned Parenthood, i.e., Margaret Sanger and her and how she has a history of being a eugenicist against the Black race. That's a quote that is what she wanted to do. She has mentioned that on several occasions. It's not just about family planning. It's about how can we eliminate an entire racial group. But if they're supporting this curriculum, I mean, that just gives you more evidence that there is something really, really bad about this. What do you say? What do you think, Sue?
Well, I believe that your first red flag is you kind of got to watch out their language, because a lot of times their language is the opposite of what they're saying. For example, healthcare. That healthcare sounds wonderful, absolutely. But when they refer to healthcare, it's literally the opposite. And the people that are connected to, like the WHO, what is that? Yes, the WHO. Who? You're funny. It's just that, like, I believe their symbol is Shiva or something like that.
That's CERN.
Okay.
That's CERN. Different.
Yeah, that they have as their symbol on there, in their meeting room, their big major main meeting room, and I believe it has to do with death and destruction, doesn't it?
So Shiva is the symbol. There's a statue of Shiva in CERN laboratory, that's in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And Shiva in Hindu mythology is known as the destroyer.
Yeah.
I'm not too versed in Hindu mythology, so I can't go too much further than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes you wonder why they would have that as their symbol, but they do have it in their one of their major meeting rooms. The Huda has that, and it's but they're all connected with the Planned Parenthood stuff as well. So when you kind of backtrack where that goes, and when they constantly are using the term like abortion is health care, and it's not. They're trying to make everything bad sound as good as they possibly can to convince people to do these things. And we can put all kinds of arguments on whether when a baby is not a baby, when if you can abort or not, or whatever. All I'm saying is you can look it up and look at the symbolisms, look at their belief system, and to actually see if it really lines up to the terminologies that they're using. That's one thing. Another thing is that I'm actually kind of curious about how they're just constantly patternly targeting different types of people, whether it has to do with the medicine that had to do with the sickness 19, whether it has to do with, financial life. Um, they're constantly using certain words and terms, right, Alex, to make everything sound wonderful when it's not.
Well, not just make things sound wonderful, but actually, and the exact opposite, making things that are wonderful sound horrible.
Yeah.
Like,
In
for instance,
convincing us that it should be that way, though.
yeah, exactly. I think the best example is that of they will say, "Oh, it's called the Don't Say Gay bill or law," and there is nothing in there that says "Don't say gay." It just says you're not allowed to talk or discuss things of a sexual nature that is not age appropriate until until after grade 3. That's all it says. It's an anti-grooming law, and I mean, but then again, you also making something sound that's horrible sound good. You have something like the ACA, not the ACA is the American Health Care Act, the Affordable Care Act, excuse me, which was not affordable. Not everybody got care in this whatsoever. In fact, a lot of people lost their insurance and the premiums tripled.
Yeah.
So there you
So
go.
you have to kind of, yeah. So that's super. You have to kind of step back and look to see if there's an agenda with these sort of things. Um,
Only are.
it's yeah, and it usually is. Um, and they will say things. And here's the other thing that always bugs me is they're repeating it. You can see, like, as you had put, the Don't Say Gay bill, they're repeating it over and over. They're calling it that over and over again, and that right there should be a red
Is
flag when they start
that
repeating these same things for the programming purpose.
that
It's the same thing when they say healthcare on certain thing. Green New Deal is another one. It's not green, trust me. It's definitely not a deal. Um, so when they use these terminologies here, you might want to actually take a step back and see what is in these terminologies. What do they consist of? What are they representing?
this is what I call an ape alert. An
Yeah.
APE is an acronym that I've used for a very long time. APE stands for AstroTurf, Propaganda, and Echo Chambers. And usually what happens is if you have all three of them, usually they're up to no good. So let's explain all three of those things because um, I think propaganda is pretty well explained in most cases. It's information that is meant to influence people's thought process on a certain thing. Whether it's on the news, whether it's on print, whether it's on TV or video, um, that's propaganda. A in this is AstroTurf. Now, an AstroTurf is a type of group or organization which has been sponsored or has been treated as it is something completely different. So, for example, an example of an AstroTurf would be Women for Walmart, which was an organization that was meant to advocate for Walmart's. It was supposed to be a positive outlook for Walmart, really to endorse the business model and how they operate. When you really dive into it, you find out that Women Walmart was actually created by Walmart itself as a publicity statement. Another good example of an AstroTurf would be anything that would be under the Open Societies Foundation. Um, and that there's a laundry list of different companies that have been under them. Um, they act like they're smaller companies, but they're actually bankrolled by much bigger companies in order to, as a form of cover. And then we have an echo chamber. And an echo chamber essentially is when you have a group of people who just keep on saying things over and over and over and over again until it gets into somebody's psyche. For example, if you remember several months ago, we had this thing with different news companies, and they kept on saying, well, this is dangerous for our democracy. All right. And they just keep on saying that it's dangerous for democracy. It's dangerous for democracy. Just keep on saying that over and over and over and over again. Eventually, it's just going to, you're just going to think, oh, well, if they keep on saying it, it must be true. And so that's what we're seeing right now with things like "Don't Say Gay." Everyone's just saying that. Oh well, it's going to say "Don't say gay." Don't say. And the news just keeps on saying that over and over and over again. And then you have different groups that are saying, "Oh, we don't want this because of this will hurt our foundation and it's going to hurt people." And then the news starts propagating it. So you have all these different things occurring at the same time. Usually, that means that there is something that they don't like. And I mean, we're talking about the deep state, the bad guys, whatever you want to call them, the cabal, uh, what they don't like. But then again, there are times where you're going to find out that these things are being done in a positive light. So this is not always going to be done in the detriment of people. Sometimes this is done for the benefit of people. And a good example of a benefit or a good or a positive version of this would be the "Let's Go Brandon" chat. Everyone just kept on saying "Let's go Brandon," right? It was natural. It wasn't something that was happened to any group, anything like that. It just happened to be one reporter from NBC talking to a NASCAR driver, happened to be named Brandon, and it just took a life on its own.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah, and so this when you see the signs and the red flags on these sort of things, that's where you do your research to find out where this is coming from, and that's what they're all hoping is the public, um, kind of latches onto it just because it's being repeated. So especially the whole sickness and the whole shots and all the stuff that was going on, everything. There was constant amount of repeating over and over again. And then when you find them backtracking and flip-flopping, and it's just that it's hard for people to get off that latch. And that's why they can flip-flop and a lot of times still get away with it.
There's a song like that. It goes flip, flop, fly. Don't care if I die. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. There's actually a song with that. Anyways, that's what I keep on hearing when that's what I think of when I hear that. Anyways, sorry. Go ahead. Continue, Sue.
So yeah, so Disney's not doing very well for
No.
all the stuff that they're doing, and do we want to also touch on kind of what's going on with Twitter and the there's a guy.
Oh, it's Mr. Musk. Mr. Musk and Elon. Mr. Elon Musk, the head of Twitter. No, not really. Not at this moment. Maybe soon. Head of Tesla, head of SpaceX, former head of PayPal. He has a longer list of different things that he has been involved with. Now, I have a very interesting thought on him, but we'll save that for later. Let's just talk about what the facts are. Let's talk about what's going on this week and what has happened if you have been under a rock or if you're just, busy with life in the rough and tumble world. What has happened is, well, Elon Musk is really screwing with Twitter. He is playing games with them.
Yeah, definitely doing the cat and mouse, play the game, let him live, catch him again, and choke him up, and then let him go, and just keep going round and round with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had, I believe he started out with having a 9% stock in Twitter, which made him he had the highest share of the largest shareholder of Twitter. And then they offered him a position on the board of directors, which he found out that he would only be allowed to have up to, at maximum, 14.5% of the stock. And well, he's like, I'm not going to do that. I want more of that. So he sends a letter to the Securities and Exchange Commission and goes to them and says, can I buy more stock? And they say, yes, you could buy more stock so long as you're not on the board. And that is when he sent a letter to the chairman of the board saying, I am willing to buy 100% of the stock of Twitter for, I think it was 400 $54.20 per stock, which I believe was a 54% increase in premium. So he's paying 54% more than he would be if he was buying it just stocks alone, right? He said, and this has brought up an issue, right? Now the board has to decide, and the stockholders have to decide, is it worth him buying the company? Of course, we had one of the stockholders said, I do not accept this. And it's our good buddy, Alaouid bin Talal, who is known because he was very influential when it came to Twitter, very influential when it came to Citibank. It has alleged connections to Obama and other politicians. And he also was arrested in 2017 in a massive anti-corruption purge in Saudi Arabia conducted by the Saudi king, where a lot of his assets were seized and frozen. So if this is and if this happened, I normally would be going like, oh, that's not good. This guy is no good. But now Twitter is faced with a serious dilemma. The fact that Elon Musk is offering more than what is currently available for Twitter if you buy the stocks. It is of the fiduciary duty of the board, to the stockholders, to do things in the best interest of those who own that have possessed stock. So if they don't accept it, then they have violated their fiduciary duties. If they do accept it, then Elon Musk takes control of Twitter. And if anything happens where they destroy data or any other important documents or source code or anything like that, well, then during the transfer, it could be considered fraudulent. And then we have a nasty lawsuit in there. Or let's say things get declined and Musk will then dump his stock, which is going to tank Twitter even more than it already is. Because if you look at the stock, it looks like a freaking I've seen roller coasters more tame than this thing right now.
Yeah, it's almost free falling.
It's going up and down, up and down, up and down, because people are not sure. They're really like, what's happening? What's happening? Now, what Musk wants to do is make Twitter private. He wants to take it off the market for people not to trade. He wants to make this a private company where he can then start making changes outside the control of outside the market.
Yeah.
Now, when this happens, go ahead, Sue.
No, I was saying that he's basically trying to put them in a lock of catch-22. So, and it's actually been fun to watch because he is messing with them, definitely. But yeah, I think he's been trying to do that if he could totally get his hand completely on Twitter, so he could basically rule it to how he sees fit, pretty much. He's been wanting to do things to make it easier for everybody to access, but also make it easier for everybody to be able to say what they need to say on there. So exactly. He also wants to make different types of changes algorithm. I think he was, I think he was trying to find also a way to. He had a list of things that he wants to do at Twitter if he had his hands entirely on it. I think one of the things that he say he wanted to do was allow people to be able to write more on Twitter. You know, we have a limited amount of characters we're supposed to put in or something like that.
Yeah. Also, I think another thing he wanted to do was add an edit button to the tweet, so you don't have to constantly delete and then redo the tweet.
Yeah. I think he was going to try to make it more video friendly, because Twitter has this thing where it's not like Facebook, where you could just kind of slide your video in and they'll let it bake for a few minutes and it'll be ready, and then you can pass it on to everybody. So Twitter, you can't do that. It's somehow particular about what types of how you put your videos in. So he does want to make everything more shareable, definitely. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and people are, like you said, are, on the fence about a lot of things because they don't know which way Elon's going to jump. Now, I think that they've even asked, well, if it fails, do you have a plan B? And he sarcastically was doing the thinking, mode for a second. He goes, yeah, there's a plan B. And we noticed that some of the people are starting to sweat bullets now.
Yeah, a lot of people are sweating bullets right now. Another thing that's kind of interesting when it came to this is how the board has reacted to this. So two of
It
the
shows
most,
you what side they're on. Definitely.
yeah, two of the most powerful companies when it comes to owning stocks and bonds and anything that has to do with the market is BlackRock and Vanguard. Both of those companies have apparently made a deal with one another where BlackRock sold a portion of their stock and gave it to Vanguard, which made Vanguard the most had the highest amount of stock out of any person or company for Twitter. You may be thinking, oh well, now Musk doesn't have the controlling stock. And not so fast. Not so fast. It may look like it, but that's not true. Vanguard may have the largest amount of stock for any person or company, but Elon Musk still has the most stock of any private individual, which has priority over companies. So, like, for example, let's say Sue here has a company called Sue's Crystals, right? And Sue's Crystals has 45% of the stock of something, and I'm a private citizen, I only have 40%. And then everybody else is below us. Well, you may be thinking, Sue's Crystals now is the most powerful individual when it comes to these things. Not exactly, because I still have the largest private individuals controlling stock of things. So there are still rules about that. By the way, it's not financial advice. I'm not giving you advice. I am not authorized to do so. So please do not take it as such. This is just an analysis. This is just my personal opinion on this matter. So consult a licensed professional for anything you may be dealing when it comes to investing.
So yeah, that's a very good example that kind of makes it easier for everybody to kind of see. So yeah, I mean, he can actually literally tilt the scale. The thing is that they are seeing at the one point they had the scale way in their favor for a long time.
Yep.
And now he's taking the weights off on their side of the scale and putting it on his side. And that's what's worrying them, because he could easily overpower them. It wouldn't take much. I mean, he has the money to do it, so that's definitely not the problem. So now it is up to the board to decide what, I mean, it's just up to stockholders, shareholders, and the board to figure out how they're going to respond to this. But right now, they're not responding well to this. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out.
Yeah. So another thing that's actually kind of interesting with this is that there is a lot of rumbling about a potential merger between Twitter and Truth Social.
Yeah.
And you may ask yourself, how would that happen? Because Trump's company has no relation to anything like this. Well, this is where it kind of becomes interesting, because Trump, when he created Truth Social, one of the other things he had was an acquisition company. And the whole purpose of an acquisition company is to, well, you guessed it, acquire companies. So you can do this a few different ways. One way is to have, let's say, Elon Musk, let's say he buys the company, buys Twitter. He can then go into an agreement with this acquisition company and say, well, I will sell Twitter for X amount of dollars. And then they will make a deal. like that, and then they'll sign some papers, and then you have to do the proper procedure when it comes to the SEC and the other bureaus within the federal government in order for everything to go above board. That's one way. And then when that happens, then they can merge those things, and Twitter and True Social would be, well, I'm saying once again, they will become one entity. And so potentially you can have Twitter's algorithm and everything that they do within True Social, and you can merge accounts. So like, say, for example, I have an account on both of them. Theoretically speaking, I could merge both of my Twitter and my True Social accounts into one account, which will have everything from both.
Yeah, the nice thing about that is also they would merge the algorithm system together, because remember, they were designing True Social so that the bad guys wouldn't have access to it and shut it down if they want to. The only way they're going to shut anything down right now is to possibly shut the internet system down. That's the only way they're going to stop it now. So to have True Social have these certain algorithms and a certain type of platform with certain type of algorithm that cannot be shut down by the bad guys. Can you imagine how much sweating they're going to have if they see Twitter merge with that algorithm, and you can't shut Twitter down either? They would literally lose the keys to the house, basically. And the locks will be changed, and they will have no access.
And as Dave from X22 will say, they lost the bullhorn.
Yep.
But get this, it gets better, or worse for Twitter, but better. It gets better because let's say Elon Musk does not buy Twitter. Everything falls apart in that deal. Well, in that case, you can have the second option. Elon Musk sells his stock, which with 9% of the stock would tank the tank Twitter down to dangerous levels, which again, now you have the acquisition company doing the second thing you can do, which acquire companies through acquisition of stock. Yeah. And so they could just gobble up the really, really cheap stock now because they plummeted that thing and buy it for peanuts. They wanted, Musk is offering a multi-billion-dollar deal here. If True Social gets involved with it, well, the stock is really low. What they may have is not a multi-billion-dollar deal, but maybe a multi-million-dollar deal or less than that, which, by the way, fiduciary duties are still in play right now when it came to that. So you really want that to happen. You're going to see a massive changes within the board, within stockholders, and how that's going to operate. So it's a lose-lose deal for Twitter. No matter what happens, Twitter is really in its death throes at this moment.
Yeah, the only choice that they have now is to either come out of this with a little moolah in their pocket or come out of it totally broke.
Exactly. It's either or.
Yeah.
A lot of this happened, really, if you really want to go back to it, really happened after Jack left. When Jack Dorsey left the company, a lot of changes were happening, and this became an option. Hard to say it, but it has to do with that. But we'll see how this will play out.
You know what they say when the cat's away.
Yep, I know what they say.
Yeah, so, with Jack Dorsey left, he definitely opened a lot of doors and made it a little easier for Twitter to be picked on.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we'll have to actually see how this plays out too. This will in the coming week. I know that a lot of stuff that's even going on now has to do with the energies that are going on. I know that kind of getting back to that a little bit. I believe if I remember correctly, this particular Easter it falls on the 17th, which in our group we call it Q Day. Once a month, there's always Q Day. Also, let's see. I believe that we have a full moon, correct? And I
Yeah.
believe we have a lunar eclipse as well, a full lunar eclipse that I believe should be visible to a majority of the United States, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. You are correct.
So I don't know if there's anything else having to go on. I know that a lot of the energies are changing. I know the bad side is going to be getting ready to do all sorts of horrific stuff, and they're going to try to pull in as much energy and power on their side as possible because they know what's coming down the line right now. I know we have the midterms coming up, and so that's one of the things they're worried about. So they're scrambling, trying to do all kinds of things. I think like they're going to try another round of lockdowns or something, I believe, Alex.
It's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
go over very well, considering the fact that you have governors, even like, for example, my governor, who
Yeah.
has made a mandate for medical workers when it comes to what's considered being fully having the proper medical credentials at this moment. Initially, he was going to go for all four, but he has at that point reneged to have only three, and he's strongly recommending four. So that's he's really kind of backing track of that. We do have places like Philadelphia where they reinstituted their mask mandate for indoors. So it really depends on where you are and how the situation is at your particular location.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it's going to stick much. I mean, there's
Oh.
only so much rinse, lather, and repeat round and round again, and then people start rolling their eyes, say, "Yeah, where have we seen this before? What happened the last round?" You know.
Exactly. It's you can only milk the cow so much before the others don't give you anything.
Or when you see the rib cages.
Oh, by the way, there was an update with the Twitter story.
Okay, awesome.
So this is coming out of CBS News. Okay. So one of the things that is going on apparently is the board in Twitter itself is decided that they may institute a poison pill, which if this were to be put into place, and this is quote by them, it says, in Twitter's case, the plan will go into effect if any person or group buys at least 50% of Twitter stock, a purchase that is not approved by its board. The quote continues, if triggered by such a purchase, the plan would give other shareholders the right to buy additional shares of Twitter stock at a discount, which would then dilute the value of Musk's shares that would effectively reduce the control that Musk could gain through share purchases. The Twitter said that the plan doesn't prohibit its board from accepting an acquisition proposal if it believes it is in the best interest of Twitter and its shareholders, end quote. So what they've decided, it looks like, is if Musk buys or offers to buy this, they're going to make it so that the stock is so cheap that other shareholders can buy as well. So this is interesting. We'll see. This is still developing at this moment, so keep an eye on this. We may see some things change through next week.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, it's just. I mean, this is a war, and when we have wars going on, we're going to constantly have, not just straight, just plain battlefield that we've seen in histories and guns are blazing and stuff like that. That's not the only way that there can be a war, even globally.
Yes.
So we have a war for the mind as well. And that's definitely a fight for it. It's a fight for everybody's thoughts and everybody's way of life. And so they're constantly, edging on for, the sides of people of what they want to stand on. So we are having a war for the mind. We're having a war for how our, lives are lived, whether it's financially, mentally, stability, economically, everything, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's where
Yep.
all the mandates, all the bills that are being signed. I mean, a lot of red flags with the bills. That's actually been bothering me lately, especially when they have bills that are like thousands and thousands of pages, and they're going to vote on it that day or the next day. Nobody has time to read that, but they're going to vote on it anyway. You know, so
One of there's two thoughts real quickly. One is it reminds me of how much I enjoy a bill that was proposed by Rand Paul. Is Senator Rand Paul would be the proper distinction of that. He deserves the respect as an elected official. One of the things he wanted to do was a bill called the One Thing at a Time Bill Act. And what that would do is that you couldn't jam things into bills. It would just be one thing at a time. And secondly, if you've ever seen how Senator Paul writes his bills, you basically read the bill in a 15-minute coffee break because they're 6-7 pages long. They're not very long at all.
Yeah, that would be best.
That was
Definitely. Instead of making them, oh my God, what was the? I don't even know what the record for the biggest one is. What is it, like 4,000 something odd pages? One of them. I think the Green Deal was one of the biggest ones. Or was it the the infrastructure one? I think is the biggest right now.
I think the infrastructure bill was. It would be the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2000, and longest bill ever passed by Congress. It was a staggering 5,293 pages.
Wow, how long would it take to read that? That's amazing.
Definitely not a 15-minute coffee break.
Yeah, definitely not. So it's crazy what they're putting out there, and they're expecting all of us to actually be cool with this. So again, just kind of sort of we can kind of just sort of take a look at the patterns that are going on, especially with the sickness that we had to deal with for the last couple of years. Look at the pattern. They're trying to run things over and over again. And like one of the things is you can't predict the stuff that the sickness that they've been calling sickness C19. They you can't predict that sort of thing unless you're planning it. How they're predicting outages or internet outages or computer outages and things like that. If they're predicting it, and there's no way you can predict it, there's a huge chance that they're the ones that are planning it. So these are things to look out for when you see on the news when they announce things. Ask yourself, how would they know this? How would they know how they're doing these sort of things? Whether it's food shortages, that's the current one. Being able to predict things like that, and there's absolutely no way you can predict a food shortage unless you're behind it. So kind of just be aware of the patterns, that goes on. So
there's like three examples that I like to use when it came to this thing. By the way, if they're talking about these things, they probably have planned this.
Yeah,
and several examples of this would be include, like you have KDEX, which was a real-time tabletop role play of a certain situation. Another one would be called Event 201, and then a third one was called Cyber Polygon. And so here's an interesting thing I would like to share, and it's this is how Event 201 is described. Okay, now this is not connected to COVID-19 or anything with it whatsoever. But what's funny is that when you listen to the description of it, it sounds eerily similar. So this happened in October 18th, 2019. And so this is the quote for it, right? Event 201 simulates the effects of a fictional coronavirus passing to humans via infected pig farms in Brazil with no possibility of any vaccine, quote unquote, being available in the first year. And the simulation in this world ended after 18 months with 65 million deaths from this disease. Okay, this has nothing to do with COVID-19 or anything with it whatsoever. This is a role-playing scenario that simulates a outbreak. Like I said, there are similarities to this, and this happened before. So, but then again, I was saying there's other things like Kate X, Atlantic Storm, Event 20, Cyber Polygon, etc., etc., etc. There are these different stories, these different role-playing games, quote unquote games, that are done. Or they connected to current situations that we deal with now and before. You could argue it. But I just find it very fascinating that such a thing exists.
Well, I mean, you should actually consider it also a red flag that they call the television shows, especially called programming. Why do they call it programming? So that's something to also sit back and look at it. You know, the what was it? I believe MK Ultra is involved with all of these programmings that we see.
Yeah, MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah.
A few others.
So it actually pays to pay attention to the patterns of, you know, what people are seeing. So you know, it is, you know, don't rely heavily on even what we say. You can research it. Don't rely heavily on what your news channel says. Always research it. Research. You have actually the freedom to research. I know it's getting harder to do it now, and that tells you right there that whose side that the companies you do the research engine on, you know, especially Google. They're definitely not a friend.
Well, you know, when you're looking into different things, you know, go into like, maybe you'll think like, this sounds interesting. And you will maybe do a quick Google search or a DuckDuckGo search or Yandex or Bing, whichever search engine is your pleasure. And then what happens personally?
Oh, you cut out.
I don't know that
Try
you
again.
search one thing. What's that?
You said what happens and then you cut out. You might want to start back there.
What happens where? Where did I stop?
Yeah, you said what happens and then they cut out.
Oh,
about
you'll just jump from one. You'll just jump from one point. You just go from one search to another search. That's all.
Yeah, and then the best way to do it is to definitely follow the money and follow the people. They're all connected. They're all connected to that the guy with that terrible island. And if they're not connected to that, they're connected to other organizations, and a lot of them have to do with trafficking. So and kind of step back and look. I'm not saying every company has this, but a lot of times if you want to make it big, really big, we're talking about in the upper millions to billions, you want to make it big, you would have to have the blessings from the bad guys in order to get up there. And most of the people that are huge companies, especially box companies, in order for them to make it big or made it big, they probably did some unsavory things to get there.
Exactly. But you know, it's funny when you're researching or searching things, make it into a game. One of the games that I've learned about is this thing called the Wikipedia game. And the Wikipedia game, you don't necessarily need Wikipedia for this, but well, we'll just use Wikipedia for an example for this. So how this game works is that you have two things that are completely unrelated with one another. So, for example, you can do, say, and then you have, say, Jupiter, right? So the color green and Jupiter. And what you do at green, and you search through the article for green, and then you go to another link, and then another link, and then what you do is that eventually you ease yourself, you search your way into the article for Jupiter. So it's kind of like when you do the what is it, the six the different, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called. I think it's 6 degrees for Kevin Bacon.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
That's it. So yeah, it's called It's called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. A Wikipedia game is very similar to the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, okay.
Which is basically that you can connect Kevin Bacon to any actor within six moves.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yep. That's you make a game. You make a game. You make the game of researching, or you're researching, not boring. You make it interesting. You don't always go for the deep, dark, gritty things. Sometimes you go for something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
you can look up a video game or a movie or a television show or a sport, and then you can just ease your way into it, because then you can just keep on jumping different pages. Like playing Frogger or something.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Actually, that's really, really smart. I never thought of doing it that way. I've actually tried to do it almost I guess the way I was taught by John D'Souza. He kind of gave us a little idea how to search, and he talks about how we just follow the money and follow the people. And yeah, it can get pretty deep when you search it that way, very quickly even.
My major concern when it comes to just following the money is that you're going to be overly serious about it.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you're going to be dealing with cognitive dissonance and other things, and you're going to get into really, really deep topics right away. And doing the 6 degrees or the Wikipedia game makes it so it is user friendly for anybody who depending on no matter what they are currently, how skilled they are at this. It's very user friendly.
And that sounds fun. I ought to try it. I'm definitely going to try it. Yeah.
Wait, we could try it a little afterwards. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's good. Let's see what we can connect with jump rope and straws.
Yes.
So before we go, time's just about up, and so before we go, I thought we haven't done it on the show lately, and I thought we should kind of throw in our contact information. Anybody is welcome to email us. I'm at burpbubbles333 at gmail.com. That's BURPBUBBLES 333 at gmail.com. So we got burp and we got bubbles. And I'll tell you a quick story how I got that. When I was in college, I actually kept that burp bubbles name. I'm actually the original burp bubbles. So when you start seeing different burp bubbles throughout the internet, you can trace it all back to me. And so burp bubbles was because in order to stay awake in college with massive amounts of study, I would just fall asleep in class. So in order to stay awake, I actually drink massive amounts of soda. It was bad. Back then, I didn't know what soda was all about, other than I knew it wasn't good for you. But hey, the caffeine, it kept me awake. I couldn't drink coffee. I cannot stomach coffee. I love the smell. I love the taste. My body hates it. So I was drinking massive amounts. When I say massive amount, I could go through a case of soda a day. That's how much soda I drank. I don't know how I didn't become diabetic. But that's how I stayed awake. And so I had a friend who drew for hobby cartoon characters, and that's the characters with the big head and a little body. And he knows that I drank soda like crazy. So he drew a picture of me having a bunch of crushed soda cans surrounding me, and I'm burping, and I got bubbles kind of floating over my head, kind of like what you do when you draw fishes. So it was a name that actually stuck. It was a nickname that actually stuck through college. So that's where that came from. And by the way, just a side note, I don't really drink soda anymore. Now that I know what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of originals, I'm also an original when it comes to this. I am the original Czar Alexei.
Ah, that's awesome. So do you have a contact information for everyone?
Czar. Yeah, so my contact information you can either use my Yahoo or Proton Mail, and it's spelled TSARALEXI at Proton Mail, PROTONMAIL.com, or Zaralexi at yahoo.com. Either or, it will. I use both of them just as frequently between both of them, so I will be more than happy to get back to you guys. And
Yeah.
as you shared your story about Burt Bubble, I will just share my story about Czar Alexei. I
Yeah.
have gotten that. I actually got that name all the way back in 2012. So over 10 years ago, I've had that name, and it had to do with the fact that I have I have a Slavic heritage, and so my father was bringing up the term czar, as in like a Russian czar, which is translated into Caesar if you go into the Roman. So if you ever see anything with Tsar Alexei or Tsar Alexei 45, that is usually me. And I've been doing this stuff all over the place for about 10 years or so. That's generally me. So if you see me, say hi. I'll probably say hi back.
Absolutely. Same with me. And if you guys want to find me on Facebook, I am XQQ McClure, McClure. So that's SQQ McClure. Originally it was Sue McClure, but got my account deleted. So the Q's were supposed to be capital Q's, but Facebook wouldn't let me do it. It would have looked like two O's at least. So I'm also on Twitter. So I'm under Sue McClure, SOO McClure on Twitter. So that's MCCLURE. If you guys want to find me, you can follow me. You're welcome to. And on Facebook, you can give me a thumbs up on Messenger. So I know you got the information from this show, and more than happy to add you as a friend.
Yep.
All
Well,
right, is there anything else?
It's been fun.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm
I
good.
think we covered everything. So, guys, thank you so much for spending this last hour with us. We really enjoyed this. Hope to see you next week, same time, same place, and don't worry, we'll find the other two and try to get them out of the out of the hole they were, so that we can have a fantastic conversation with the four of us.
Yeah, you put their face on the milk carton, and I'll hit the telephone poles with the flyers. We'll find them eventually.
Do we think we need to put a classified ad for this as well?
As long as it's declassified, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Don't worry. Everything will be above board and completely legitimate. Anyways. Anyway,
well, thank you, everyone. You were all awesome. Sending you lots of love, and we'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one. Good night.